Well, hello today. We are kicking off our first virtual Justice Night, which I'm actually not sure what time of day we're going to play this. It might not even be night, but um, here we are doing things virtually. And the reason why we have chosen to go to a virtual model than to wait for an opportunity when we can all gather together is there are still amazing and wonderful things happening in the world. And we don't want to wait to share those things. Like, we should have still been talking about those things yesterday and last week. So we've decided to take Justice Night to a virtual model so we can keep sharing and giving platforms to organizations and groups that are just doing great things in the name of Jesus. So today we're joined with Matt Tallman of Open Arms International. He is the leader of the strategic partnerships with Open Arms. And he's joined today with two of his friends from Eldoret, Kenya, Caleb and Isaac. And Eldoret, Open Arms International has a village in Eldoret, and they take in orphans and teach them about Jesus. They have a school on campus, and they are doing amazing things. They're a very sustainable village. They grow their own food. They have just really tapped into finding ways to, to push the mission of Jesus in a very substantial way. So I'm so thankful to have them here and to have this time with them. So Matt, will you will you just start off by telling us about Open Arms and what you do and who you serve and why you serve them and how you even got called to serve them?
Okay. Well, thanks, Crystal. Well, first, I do want to just take a minute to acknowledge Caleb and Isaac. So my wife and I in 2009 moved to Open Arms Village and to help start the village. And shortly after we moved there, both Isaac and Caleb came to Open Arms Village. Caleb came with his parents, so we hired his biological parents, Paul and Sarah Moswai, as house parents at our village at Amani House, which means peace in Swahili. And Isaac came to our village. Did you come about the same time?
No, later.
Just a little bit later.
Yeah, I came
April. In April, okay. And but while my wife Cheryl and I were living at the village, and so they actually have come here. They both are currently attending Canby Foursquare Church, and came here to go to a small Bible college that Canby Foursquare Church started, called Canby Bible College, and unfortunately, right now they're in a bit of transition. So pray for them. They're both hoping to pursue some other options for ministry training and additional university training right now, because I suppose one of the casualties of this COVID crisis is that unfortunately Canby Bible College decided they were going to have to discontinue, but they're both still very much involved at the church and in the youth group. They both help out and volunteer with the youth group. So, but pray for them. We have another young man from our community in Eldoret that just graduated a few months ago from Canby Bible College, and he just got accepted to pursue a graduate program at Multnomah University.
Wow.
And, but pray for all three of them. All three of them are very much an integral part of the history of Open Arms Village. And these are two amazing young men. They're also both single and available. I just thought I might add that as well. But They'll hate me for saying that, but I love them both dearly, and consider them sons of mine. So they are very precious to my wife Cheryl and I. And but I want to show you a few pictures from the village, if that's okay. So let me scoot up and grab my computer, and I'll show you share the screen and show you a few pictures, if that's okay.
Yes.
And so right here, if it will come on, is a map of Kenya, the nation of Kenya. So can you see the yellow dot on there?
Yes.
So that's Nairobi. Everybody seems to know where Nairobi is. It's probably the biggest city in East Africa. It's the capital of Kenya. Approaching 5 million people, I think now. Yeah. And so Eldoret is kind of up towards the Ugandan border. There's an open arms logo with an arrow that points down to approximately where Eldoret is. Eldoret, when I first visited there in 2003, I think, it was a much smaller community, only maybe 100,000 people. And now there's well over 1 million. So really, really rapid growth. A lot of immigration, both internally and externally. There was a presidential election back in late 2007, early 2008. Actually, that was part of what led to some of that growth. I think there were they had 2 large, what they call IDP camps, internally displaced people camps, because I think several million people in Kenya were displaced and left homeless in the midst of the political turmoil surrounding that election. And the results were called into question. Eventually, a compromise was reached. But nevertheless, what happened was eventually, while we were living there, I think in early 2010, they declared those IDP camps closed, and the people there had no place to go. So the population of Eldoret instantly doubled at that point.
Wow.
So yeah, so we and I think Isaac, did you kind of come to our village around that time period or shortly thereafter? I think maybe a year or 2 later. Well, you did come around the time they were closing the IDP camps, I think.
Yeah, so like people are still like settling down.
People were still trying to settle down, but a lot of the homes and the property that a lot of people previously had lived on was destroyed in the middle of that violence, and a lot of lives were lost, sadly, including some of the parents of some of the children at our village. So anyway, our village, I don't know if you can see the entrance to our village here. And then we just recently got, I think about 7 babies, almost all at once, that came to our village.
Wow.
Was it last summer, I think? So now they're all toddlers. And but two of the primary ways that babies come to our village, one is through, how do I say it, through severe economic circumstances. So in Kenya, there is a national health insurance program, but it's only available, I think, if you have employment. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Some employment. Not all jobs provide that national health insurance program, right? Yeah. Okay. So a lot of people don't have access to health insurance, so that don't have resources. What happens is the hospitals have a policy that if you have your baby at the hospital, they won't let you leave the hospital until you've paid your hospital bill. Wow. And in the midst of severe economic circumstances, a lot of moms will abandon their babies at the hospital because they can't pay their bill. And it seems really sad and sobering to us, but that's one of the reasons why we get calls pretty regularly from the hospital. Do you have availability at your village to take care of some babies. And so we have a baby home. I'll show you a map of our village right now. So, boy, I thought I had a map of the village. I must have. There it is. So we have 10 children's homes, and we have a baby home. Caleb, you grew up in a Monty home. Isaac, which home did you grow up in?
Amani.
You both grew up.
Yeah.
So you're brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you're my sons. So, yeah. So anyway, so we have 10 children's homes, a baby home. The largest building, kind of in the middle left part of the screen, is our medical center and outreach center, and our church meets there as well. And then in the lower central section is our school. And up in the top central section of the screen, there are, you can't see them very well, but there are 3 buildings. They're guest lodges, and that's where we house all of our teams. So when you come to our village, you get to actually live in an African village and get more immersed in the culture, share devotions and meals in the children's homes at night. And in the day, be involved in various outreach programs, and get to come back, and you still have hot showers and flush toilets and internet that works at dial-up modem speeds. That's as good, fast as it'll get in Africa.
Wow.
And so don't plan on sending home any videos through the internet. So, but we also have a river that borders to the right of our screen. That's where we get all of our irrigation and drinking water. And we have 52 acres of farming and agriculture as well. So I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. I want to show you one of the children's homes. So this, do you see that? This is Tom and Amy Okello and their family. Do you see that on the screen?
Yes, yes.
Okay, good. So this is Ushindi House. That means victory in Swahili, and that does mean victory in Swahili, doesn't it?
It does.
Okay, just checking. I need my 2 Swahili instructors to help me occasionally. So Tom and Amy, they have one of the larger homes at the village, and I think they currently have about 18 children. They might have a little bit more, I can't remember, or less. We try to keep all of the homes under 20 because if they get too large, they start feeling institutionalized. And we want this to be a home, a large, really, it operates as a large, authentic, large Kenyan home. Mm. And so from the youngest age, all of the children will help with chores, and they all help with a little bit, certainly with cleaning up after meals and chores on the weekends, and then they go to school during the week. Mm. So, this is one of our classrooms. So like every other school in the world right now, our classrooms have been closed for the last several months because of COVID, the COVID virus. We haven't, it's been really difficult to provide online learning through our school, and most of the schools in Kenya, the internet isn't always accessible to most students. We have done some home-based learning programs in each of the homes, led by one of our house parents, Lawrence. The good news is the president of Kenya just announced that they'll be reopening the schools on September 1st.
Wow.
So we're really, really grateful that we're going to be able to open up our school again on September 1st. Normally we would be open right now because they do year-round schooling. They have breaks in April, August, and December. And they would be just wrapping up the last few weeks of the summer term in the next few weeks. But we're closed right now. However, in about 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to ask all of our teachers to come back and start preparing their classrooms and their lesson plans. So
Wonderful.
So we're really grateful. I think the president of Kenya, his name is Uhuru Kenyatta. His father was the founding president of Kenya. And so he's going to make another announcement July 1st. We'll find out what other things might open up. Speaking of the COVID virus, comparatively, Kenya and Africa as a whole has not physically been impacted as much by the COVID virus. There's about what, 7,000 or 8,000 verified cases in Kenya right now.
Yeah, around 7,000.
Yeah,
only like 118 deaths.
Yeah, only 118 deaths. So,
Wow.
so like if you like Oregon currently has about the same number of verified cases and actually a higher rate of death. So we're approaching what, 200 deaths in Oregon, and 7 or 8,000 cases. But there are over 50 million people in Kenya, so 52 million. So the number of cases in Africa as a whole has been much lower. Actually, I think Kenya has the second or third highest number of verified cases in Africa. South Africa has the highest number.
Nigeria too has a little bit higher than Kenya.
Oh, okay. So we're third. Okay.
Yeah.
But compared to the United States, well, unfortunately, the United States leads the world in the number of cases.
Yeah.
But some people have asked why the lower number of verified cases. Some of that might be due to testing, but there are two other really valid reasons. One, the response rate in Africa as a whole, which was much swifter. And honestly, they were probably more prepared. African nations were probably, because of the Ebola virus 8 years ago, they had all of these preparations in place. They already went through responding to a major epidemic, the Ebola virus, which is far more lethal but far less contagious. And so the response rate in virtually every African nation was much swifter, and that helped prevent an early surge of the virus. The other reason, and this is why I think there is a lower amount of people dying from COVID. Well, two reasons. One, with the lower hospitalizations, hospitals are keeping up with helping to treat people, but the average lifespan in Africa is lower. The average age in Africa is much lower, and this virus affects elderly people much more harshly. That's why the death count in Europe and North America has been higher, because we have a lot more elderly people in our population. So those are two other a couple other reasons why. The sobering part is that the economic impact in Africa, in every African nation, has been very, very severe. I think Isaac and Caleb, I don't know if you have heard much of some of the reports, how people are doing, how your families are doing, but families in Kenya are not going to get a stimulus check from the government. No. They won't get a payroll protection plan loan. So this is a matter of survival. And I hate to say this, but I think a lot more people in Africa are probably are going to actually die from malnutrition and starvation than from COVID virus. Well, there's two reasons for that. One is the COVID virus. Two is the worst locust century. Hit southern Ethiopia, went into northern Kenya. I was told by one of our missionaries that a large swarm flew over our village, and I think maybe only one or two of the locusts landed, maybe for a photo op.
Yeah.
But we had zero damage, zero crop damage. We kind of felt like the land of Goshen. You know, the locusts were swarming over Egypt, but they didn't touch the land of Goshen.
Wow.
And but that swarm has continued on. Half of it went to West Africa, half went all the way through the Middle East and into India. Um, but that is going to affect all of those nations, um, especially because of the economic shutdown and the combination of this locust infestation. So especially pray for northern Kenya, southern Ethiopia, and South Sudan. I think those are three areas that are really hard hit by this locust infestation.
Mm.
So, but anyway, our village, in the midst of this COVID shutdown, has actually, by God's grace, I think we've really done reasonably well. We had we have a lot of farming and agricultural projects. So, and interestingly, Crystal, I think I told you this story. So this picture here was taken 10 years ago, shortly before I met uh, Isaac and I met Caleb. And we were invited to speak in a church near our village. And it was a lovely congregation. Um, and when I got up to speak, I noticed there weren't just people, but there were sheep and goats and chickens. And I didn't understand what was taking place till they took up the offering. And that's when I realized I saw the offering plate going around this room, and I don't think I saw any money in the offering. There were eggs and vegetables and chickens, and this was a completely agrarian economy in this community. And
Wow.
this lovely congregation absolutely insisted on giving us this rooster. And so we brought him back to our village, and I think we only had one or two children's homes back then. And I gave this rooster to our house parents. And unbeknownst to me, now I thought they would eat him for dinner that night because he's a pretty healthy, good-looking rooster. But they had just bought 24 layer hens and built a small chicken coop, and they said, put the rooster in the hen house. We'll figure out something later. Well, through I think about a month later, um, our one of our two house mamas at the time offered a prayer request in our daily staff prayer time. She said our layer hens are not laying enough eggs right now, and that's when we found out that putting a rooster in a hen house is actually not good for egg production.
Oh.
But through unintended consequences, he became the founder of our entire poultry project, because he did begin to multiply things. So then, I don't know, a month later, we built a separate chicken coop, put him and all of our new baby chickens and a couple of the hens in a separate chicken coop to start a broiler chicken project. Well, then, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, our layer hens now were doing what God created them to do. They had peace and solitude and quiet, and they were laying eggs every day. And then a local Kenyan lady heard about our new broiler project. She said, I would like to help. So she brought over 200 baby chickens, and we were off to the races. So,
Wow.
yeah. So now, it depends on the month, but we lay as many as 1,000 eggs a day. We've harvested as many as 1,000 chickens a month. That's our primary source of protein for the village, but it also helped inspire dozens of other sustainability projects. So this is our tilapia fish farm, where we use aquaponics technology,
Mm.
and where the fish water gets pumped into the vegetable garden next door. And it's great fertilizer for the vegetable garden. The vegetables actually grow 4 times faster than they do in normal soil. Then they filter out the sediment and send back nutrients that are healthy for the fish, and it creates a symbiotic relationship. I think last year we added irrigation to our village, so now we've more than doubled our crop yield. We currently grow, I think, about 70, little over 70% of our own food, which has been huge for our village. So it's been um, really helpful during this COVID virus that there's only a few staples we have to buy in town. I think sugar, rice, oil, and maybe a few other things. And we also, all of our sustainability projects combined uh, all pay for nearly half of our general operating budget. Um, but which is beautiful because it all started with the gift of a rooster from a church in rural Kenya that literally had no money, but they gave what they had, and look what God did with the rest. So we're grateful for that. We One of the challenges, and that has a silver lining right now, with the markets being closed, the restaurants being closed, we haven't been able to sell any of our excess food at our village, but we've identified, I think, over 100 families in our community right now that are in need or in crisis, that we're able to help feed them every day. So we're grateful for that. We also started, so Ted Whiteman, one of the missionaries at our village, he and an engineer from Portland helped start a grain silo project a couple years ago as well. So we built one for our village because we were losing nearly half of our grain, our maize, which is kind of the staple crop there. So they grow maize and eat it almost every day. They call it ugali. It tastes like grits. And to me, I don't know, have you guys ever had grits? Does it just ugali? Okay, so you've never tried grits. To me, it kind of tastes like grits, but it's a little bit thicker, and so. Uh, but this grain silo, after he built the grain silo, some of the staff started asking, "Can you build one for us, a smaller version?" Because uh, everybody on our staff, everybody in our community around us, one of the core values, I think, in African, and one of the ways people survive is through subsistence farming. If people are losing jobs right now, which people are, a way they can survive is by having a small plot of land, where they can farm. And but the problem is, if they're losing half of their maize to rodents and bugs like we were, that what this grain silo did is it reduced the spoilage rate to zero. And so it became a big game changer. Then our community heard about it. So I think we've made close to 1,000 of these grain silos now.
Wow.
And that's probably been even a bigger influence in helping our community survive during this COVID virus than our feeding program has. So it's been really fun to see that help people in our community.
That's
Um, you know, so we have a new water system at our village here. So that's a picture of that. We actually produce so much water now that we're giving it away. So we created a little spigot on the road next to our village, where there's dozens of families every day that can get access to water, which has been a blessing. Um, uh, Normally, we send out teams almost every month, and we would absolutely love to have a team from Bridgeport Church come to our village. Right now, that's not possible because of the COVID virus. But Lord willing, as things calm down, I'm hoping the president of Kenya will look at making an announcement sometime, maybe July 1st, maybe later this year, to begin opening the borders again and allowing tourists in. I know that, tourism is obviously a big part of any country's economy. But right now, we actually had to cancel 5 teams this year. One of them, Caleb and I were supposed to go on, unfortunately. That was with Canby Foursquare Church. But anyway, we love having teams come to our village. So hopefully later this year, or definitely in 2021,
Amen, amen, amen.
things will begin to send more teams. Yep. So we also provide a lot of jobs in our community, not only in the process of building our village, but we've had employed as many as 100 people full-time from the community, and as many as 50 people part-time. Right now, because of the COVID virus, unfortunately, we've had to lay some people off, and we've had to suspend our building projects. We're hoping to start as the economy opens up, rehire some people and resume some of our building projects. So, but right now, pray about that, because that's really kind of challenging for our village and for us. Um, we do a different variety of outreach teams. Some of those teams focus on evangelism, some of them focus on training, and some are medical teams. This is one of our medical camps that we do. We usually do about 2 every year. And sorry about the foot there. That young man had an infection in his foot, and fortunately we were able to save his foot. So we cleaned out the wound and sterilized it, and he is doing well now. So one of our camps, I think, Crystal, I think I shared this with you a few years ago. Some of our camps we tend to focus on doing our medical camps in some of the poorest areas of our community. Some of those communities have a higher percentage of refugees. We did one in Missouri last year that I think that community historically had a percentage of South Sudanese refugees, but pastors from that community asked us to come, and I think that was the largest team we ever had come to our village. There were 60 people. They did a medical camp. They did a large evangelistic outreach. They did training programs. And I think soccer tournaments, a choir competition of some kind.
Wow.
Anyway, but I think there were over 3,000 people that received Christ in that outreach. But one of the most meaningful outreaches I've ever been on was a few years ago. We did one in a community between our village and Eldoret, and we set up a medical tent and a pharmacy tent, a triage tent where we take people's blood pressure and address immediate wounds. And then we also have a prayer tent. I'm usually in the prayer tent because I don't have any medical training. And so I was in the prayer tent with 2 Kenyan pastors, and I looked around this community and I said, there are a lot of Muslims in this community. And why is that? And they said, well, this is probably where all of the Somali refugees in our region live. I said, how many? Well, they said there's maybe 40,000. And that's actually, Kenya is the largest host nation in the world for Somali refugees. We're a bordering country. Somalia has been in the midst of a civil war for decades. And there's probably a 500,000 Somalian refugees living in Nairobi, another close to 500,000 in Mombasa, and then close to 500,000 living in an actual refugee camp on the border of Somalia and Kenya. So, but anyway, I was in this prayer tent, and I felt this gentleman walks up to me, who I found out later was an elder in the Somali community, and he looks at me and he says, and I said, sir, would you like to pray with me? And he says, no, I cannot pray with you. I am Muslim. And he turns around and he starts walking away. And I said, where are you going? And he said, I'm going home. And I think he actually expected that we would turn him away if he refused to pray with me. So I said, well, wait a minute. Didn't you come here to see the doctor? And he looked at me kind of curious. I smiled, pointed at the medical tent, and I said, if you really do want to go see the doctor, he's right over there. And I'll never forget what happened next, because his countenance at that point immediately changed. He grabbed my hand, started kissing my hand and weeping, and over again saying thank you, because for him that was a really big deal.
Wow.
And that's he went and saw the doctor. He got treated, got some medicine. And that's a beautiful story in itself, but it doesn't end there, because I mentioned earlier he was an elder, and I think he had a lot of influence, because apparently he went home and told all of his friends, and I noticed an hour or two later we couldn't see the end of the registration line, And so later in the day, I went to check with the registration area, and we had already registered about 5,000 people.
Hmm.
And based on their last names, they had determined that about half of them were from the Somali community. And then, but the story doesn't end there, because before the day was done, a lady wandered into the prayer tent with the assistance of someone else from the community. And when I looked at her, I recognized something that I've seen dozens of times before in our medical camps, because we don't have, I don't think we have any eye surgery clinics in Eldoret, and we might have one, but the access to them is not available for almost anyone. Uh, but what she had cataracts in her eyes, so thick you couldn't see the pupils in her eyes. She was probably completely blind.
Wow.
And it's a surgery we take for granted here. And we didn't have an eye surgery clinic at our medical camp. So I just asked her if I could pray with her. And we prayed. When we got done praying, she opened her eyes, and her eyes were perfectly clear. And she began to weep, and I began to hyperventilate. And when I calmed down a minute later and realized, well, God, you just answered this prayer immediately. Well, at that point, it didn't matter who it was. Everyone in the community wanted prayer. There were some other significant miracles that occurred that day, but the greatest miracle that occurred was I saw the very first Somali families say, yes, I want to become a Christian. And these two Kenyan pastors had never previously thought about reaching out to their Somali neighbors. So, but we love doing our medical camps. We love doing our evangelism outreaches and our training programs as well. Another outreach we did, and the very first team to do this was the Canby Foursquare Church 2 years ago. We decided to invite, we were going to do an outreach to the elderly and widows in our community. We invited anyone over 50 years old to come. We wanted to serve them lunch and have a prayer service. But at the beginning of as they entered the building, I think it was our pastor at our village, David Akeo, that suggested this. And I think he kind of, he suggested before they enter, as they enter the building, would you be willing to wash their feet as a sign of honor and respect? And we said, of course, but I think he might have predicted the outcome. I don't know for sure. What happened was the average age in that room was probably 75 years old. And these were people old enough to remember growing up under British colonialism. Wow. And here was a group of Wazungu, outsiders, foreigners, or white people from Canby, Oregon, willing to wash the feet of these Kenyan elders. And a lot of them began to weep, and it broke down so many barriers. And at the end of our time together after lunch and after our prayer service, we decided, to ask if any of them might want to receive Christ and decide to become a Christian. And we thought maybe a few might, but we were surprised that 120 people said, yes, I want to become a Christian, including, I believe, 3 ladies over 100 years old. One of them was 105. I think she was the oldest lady in the community. I think she might be with Jesus now. Is she still alive, or
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
she might still be alive.
She'd
be 107 now.
That's
But and then there was also a gentleman who I think now he's 74. If you Google his name online, you'll find that he won the Olympic gold medal in Mexico City in 1968 in the steeplechase. And he's one of the 2 fathers of Kenyan running. He and another gentleman named Kipkeno. And he brought his wife, who was also an Olympic athlete, athlete in her early days, and they both came to our outreach and both received Christ as well. So, and on a side note, Eldoret, Kenya is the running capital of Africa. So, like Portland is Nike Town and the running capital of North America. Eldoret's the running capital of Africa, except the Kenyans are faster, I have to admit. When I lived in Kenya, I used to go jogging through downtown Eldoret, and I was kind of a spectacle because I'm white, I'm old, I'm fat, and I'm incredibly slow by their standards. Because I would occasionally hear a group of Kenyan runners coming up behind me, and it was like I was standing still. They run on average 20 miles a day and train at a sub 5-minute mile pace. So good luck keeping up with them.
Oh my goodness.
I think we had was it Duncan in our village or Danson? I think in the 8th grade he ran a race. He and another guy ran a race in the 8th grade where I think they might have qualified for the NCAA finals in the 5K or the 10K. I couldn't believe the times they ran. And this was in the 8th grade. So it's pretty competitive there. Have either of you tried to run?
Yeah,
you're both really good soccer players.
Yeah, for me, I did speed walking, 10 kilometers speed walking.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. But anyway, it's partly, I think it's the running capital of Africa because we're at a really high elevation. We're at 7,200 feet. And Kipkeno built an Olympic training center outside of Eldoret, further up on the Rift Valley Plateau at about almost 10,000 feet in elevation. So,
Wow.
So that they live in Eldoret, and a month before every big race, they'll come up there and train. And okay, this is the church at our village right here, which right now we're just meeting in the homes for church. Streaming online is still, there's not enough people that have access to the internet, but we are, through our church, we are doing a daily feeding program. We're doing a couple other outreach programs through our church. We're hoping to gather back together as a community of believers soon as things open up. So pray for that. We do a lot of training in our community. We do training for pastors. The pastor at our village, David Okeo, helps lead that training. And he is, we actually are still doing that training by phone right now. But we normally have nearly 100 pastors that have been meeting monthly for that training. We do family and life skills training as well. We do job training for community families in the community. So, our village, let's hear, conflict resolution training, leadership training, all of those are really popular subjects that a lot of people in our community request when teams come. So training is a big component that a lot of our teams like to include as part of their outreach.
Yeah.
We have, I was going to tell you the story briefly. So this is Lillian and Hassan Dovolosio. Have either of you met Lillian or Hassan? Lillian has come to our village, and Hassan has briefly. They help with all of our outreaches, or a lot of them. And Lillian is a really good interpreter. She's a really good linguist too. But their primary passion, I only found this out a few years ago, is to reach an unreached people group north of Eldoret called the Pakot people. Did I pronounce that right? Yeah. Pakot or Pakot? Pakot. Thank you. And so the Pakot are all nomadic sheep herders, I believe. So there are 600,000 of them north of Eldoret. There's an additional 300,000 or 400,000 in Uganda and South Sudan, And the reason they're classified as unreached, like I think about 140 years ago, the very first Western missionaries went that followed David Livingstone into East Africa. A few of them went to the Pokot people and actually reached some of them, planted a few churches, even reached some of the witch doctors. But what they didn't know at the time was the primary source of economic growth. So Caleb is laughing because he knows about this, I think. The primary source of economic growth in this community, yeah, they rely on their witch doctors to tell them when, where, and how to steal the sheep from neighboring tribes.
Oh.
So when some of the witch doctors became Christian, they informed the community, hey, we just found out stealing is actually wrong. We need to stop. But the larger community sadly saw that as a threat to their economy. So they closed the churches, kicked out the missionaries, and for over 100 years, there were no churches among the Pokot people.
Wow.
But I think about 15 or 20 years ago, this couple, and we know of at least 6 or 8 other indigenous Kenyan missionary couples who have really started gaining access and trust in this community. And they developed what we think might be one of the first nomadic schools, because they found out nobody knew how to read in the community. So they established a school, and it became so successful that they got some funding from the Kenyan government to start establishing more schools.
Wow.
So in the but behind every school, they plant a church as well. So in the last 15 years, I think they've established 30 schools, planted 27 churches. So our church has gotten behind what they're doing, helped them in planning their 27th church. And we also just recently, thank you, that we also just recently found some solar-powered audio Bibles that just got translated 2 years ago into the Pokot language. And we gave them to all the pastors in this community. So for the very first time, they're hearing the Gospels in their own language, because most Pokot, I don't think, know either Kiswahili or English very well. So it was really important that they hear the Gospels of Jesus in their own language. So that was a big deal. It was fun. This is our new outreach center. We call it the Life Center, and I'll show you a few pictures inside. This is our pharmacy. This is Cyprian Mabonga. He helps at our clinic, and I think he's one of the directors of the clinic. Does he serve on our Kenyan board too? I think he does.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Yeah. So he serves on the Kenyan board of Open Arms as well. And this is some of our outreach offices at Open Arms Village. This is a computer lab that we have. It's in the outreach center, but it's for our school. And and then we have, this is one of the largest rooms we have gathering. Our church moved to the top floor of the Life Center because that's the largest room in our village, and we've outgrown the original building we were meeting in. And so pray that we'll be able to physically gather again soon. So I think in answer to, you had a second question, I think, which was how can you pray for us? Is that correct?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Or what was, let me go from stop sharing, and I'll come back there in a minute. So let me get these two gentlemen in the picture again. So I think what's our vision for the future? Well, certainly that the economy will reopen, that the borders will reopen soon, so that we can start doing so that our church can gather again, so that we can resume our outreach programs. So I would say the majority of our outreach programs rely, some of them rely on our team, some of them, like our outreach to the elderly, we had to discontinue because obviously they're the most vulnerable population to the COVID virus. And so we hope to resume those outreaches as this virus disappears in Jesus' name, and as we can hopefully reopen the economy soon and reopen the borders and send teams. But we would definitely like to resume our outreach programs, continue to expand on our outreach programs, find some new communities and new neighborhoods that we can reach out to with our medical camps, with our training programs. We would like to continue to expand our training program for pastors in our region. So Christianity is growing exponentially in Africa, which is really great. Africa has seen more Christian growth in the last 50 years than any other continent in the world. Wow. Which is fantastic. The challenge is there hasn't been as much of an emphasis laid upon discipleship. And I think that's where these training programs have been really, the pastors have said they've been really helpful, and that those training programs have continued to grow. The demand has continued to increase. But we also want to continue to expand our sustainability program. We would like to truly get to a point where we are completely 100% sustainable. We're adding, so we added irrigation this last year. We're going to be adding, we have cisterns and we have water storage tanks where all of the buildings on our property collect the rainwater that comes in. And we store that water for use during the dry season, because during the dry season, we don't have restrictions on drinking water, how much drinking water we can pump from the river, but we do have restrictions on how much irrigation we can pump from the river. And so we can rely on all of this water storage. We're going to hook up all of these storage tanks to our irrigation system in the next year, Lord willing, to help make our village more self-sustainable. We want to become more energy self-sustainable. So we're adding solar panels to all of our buildings over the next couple of years. We've added solar panels, I think, to half of our buildings, but we're repairing and replacing some of our roofs that need replacing over the next couple of years. And as we do that, we add solar panels to our buildings. And then we also, we're looking at ways we can help. We can also help other villages in our that are doing other outreach groups that are doing similar work that we are. How we can help some of them that are struggling, and help. Like we've worked with a group in Kitale that called Rahema Ministries. We've worked with them over the last several years to help them and their children's village. But we also, we want to continue obviously our primary mission is to help provide a home for orphan, abandoned, and vulnerable children. And we obviously want to continue to do that and continue to do it in better and better ways. Our village will probably, at some point in the next few years, will probably reach what we consider our capacity for our village, because I don't know if we've talked about building maybe a few more children's homes. But like I said, we don't necessarily want to recreate the wheel. We want to help other wheels that are struggling or limping along, if you will, other outreach groups that need help, that are asking for help, and how we can come alongside them and help them as well through our teams that come, through our outreach programs, and through our training programs that we provide within our region. So I think, so one of our, I would say probably in the next few years, as things open up, we want to continue our primary mission of helping provide a home for children, but also expanding our outreach and training programs, continue to reach out to new communities and new neighborhoods in our region. We want to make our village completely self-sustainable, and we want to come alongside other communities that need help, that want help, and help them to fulfill their mission as well.
Yeah.
So maybe a couple things that you can pray for in the process of all of this happening. Certainly pray that the borders of Kenya would open up soon, that the economy would open up, because like I said, we aren't able to sell our excess produce and chickens in the restaurants in town, or even a lot of the open markets are closed as well. And so that's had an effect on our general operating revenue, that and the fact that we don't have teams coming to our village. And unfortunately, we've had to lay off a number of people because of that. We hope to rehire most of them and be able to continue to expand in that area. But, just pray that, I know a lot of people in the world are praying that this virus would end soon. It affects everybody in the world.
Yeah.
Certainly pray for, like I said, this locust infestation that's affected the economy, especially in northern Kenya. I don't know, there might be some meaningful ways we can help and engage with that as we resume our outreach programs. But we're really concerned. We're trying to keep an eye on that. We're really concerned that a lot of people could become critically in danger in the next few weeks and months if we aren't able to help and provide ways to help people in those communities. And then of course, probably one or two other things that we're going to be doing in the next year or two. We're going to continue to, we're calling it our Raise the Roof campaign, but we're refurbishing about 5 or 6 more of our children's homes and replacing the roofs, adding solar panels. And we're going to be doing that in the next couple years. And then we're going to be, I think that's most of what we're going to be doing over the next few years that you can pray about. How, I think the last question was how you guys can be engaged, how you can get involved. So I was going to show you something. Let me share the screen again one more time. Let's see here. Where did that go? Oh, there it is. So I think a couple ways. Certainly, asking people to go to our website. openarmsinternational.org is a great way to find out more about what we're doing. Certainly what we're doing today. My wife and I actually go to a lot of churches in the region just to share about what we're doing. Upcoming, we have two events coming up, 2 or 3 events coming up you might want to participate in. I forgot to mention those, but one, you can find out about them on our website. One is what we're calling our virtual Kenyan trip. So starting August 1st, and I'll send you the details about this, Crystal. Starting August 1st to August 10th, we're having a virtual missions trip to Kenya. So we'll start each day with morning devotions, which is what all of our teams get to experience every morning when they come to our village. And so we'll have live devotions in the morning. We'll have some videos. We'll have some Kenyan recipes. You might even get to try and make ugali. But we'll have some Kenyan recipes and a few other things available to help give people an experience of what it's like, a little bit of an experience of what a missions trip might be like, minus the really, really long flight over. So that's probably good.
That's the best part.
The other thing coming up, we're normally every fall in September or October, we do an annual banquet to help create awareness about what we're doing. It's also for the purposes of fundraising, but it's a great celebration as well of what we've been able to accomplish in the last year. So this year, obviously because of the COVID virus, large gatherings are currently still banned in Oregon. So we're going to make that virtual. And so that will be on September 12th. Saturday evening, September 12th, but there'll be some activities and ways people can be engaged with what we're doing leading up to that. So that information will be available on our website as well. And the final thing that we ask every church, if at all possible, to participate in is something we call Global Orphan Sunday. It's actually an international event. So last year we had 100 churches that participated in it that are connected with Open Arms. But there's actually thousands of churches all over the world that participate in Global Orphan Sunday. It's just a way to recognize the needs of orphans worldwide, how you can be praying. So we ask churches simply to pray, maybe consider sponsoring a project or taking up an offering for Open Arms Village that day. So I'll send you more information about that as well. So a couple of other ways that churches can be engaged. Like I said, sending a team is one of the most popular ways. And Lord willing, things will open up next year, or actually in the next few months, I hope. And because we already have a group that really, really wants to come in November. That's Matt Morgan's team. He wants to come and do his youth retreat again in November. Yeah. So anyway, so pray, pray about that. We would absolutely love to host a team to come from Bridgeport Church. So we'll keep you updated on how things progress as far as the borders opening up and the availability for teams to come and serve at Open Arms Village. Maybe one or two more ways. Certainly at our website, you can also be what we call a champion of hope, somebody willing to help support the children and the families at our village on a monthly basis. It costs approximately $11 a day to provide all of the comprehensive care for a child at our village. Some people I think ask what are the costs involved in that, and that includes their education, their obviously their medical care, their everything, feeding. We have two full-time counselors at our village, Kenyan counselors that are trained in helping children that have faced trauma. It's all of the comprehensive care for the children at our village. So, people that want to participate in that on a monthly basis, that's awesome. So those are just some of the ways people can get engaged with what we're doing. That's Cheryl, my wife, and I at Open Arms Village 2 years ago. So anyway, other than that, let me push this back again. Crystal, do you have any other questions or thoughts?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
So first would be, can you tell us other ways besides your website that people can follow along on this journey? So Facebook or Instagram or just other ways that you guys share stories. Maybe share with us an email address if after this people want to follow up directly and send a message to you. Um, how how can we all follow along the journey?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram. I probably should have showed you the links for those, but if you do Google Open Arms International on Facebook or look for it on Facebook, you will find us. And I think it just I think there is more than one Open Arms International in the world. There's about 2 or 3 of them.
Oh.
We're the ones based in Portland, Oregon, the only ones based in Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
And yeah, so
It's on Instagram. Open Arms International US.
okay, what's the Instagram?
Open Arms International US.
Okay, the Instagram code. Sorry, Caleb has to help me here because I honestly confess I don't have it
The account is Open Arms International US
Okay.
on Instagram.
on Instagram. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And then on the bio, there's a link to the website too, so you can just click in there and it takes you to the website.
Yeah. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank you, Caleb.
Yeah.
So you can also email me at Matt, M-A-T-T, at Open Arms, I-N-T-L, that's short for international, openarmsintl.org. And if you have any questions or have questions about other ways you can be engaged with what we're doing, we would love that. And sometimes, some people ask, are there tangible supplies? Yes, and we ask our teams to bring, children's multivitamins and other things. We're kind of asking everyone right now, because we're not sending over teams. We can't send over supplies. So when things open up and we can start sending teams, yes, we will definitely say yes, please. I would say the number one request is children's multivitamins, but there are other items as well that are really tangible things that can really help bless our community and our children and other people. If you really want to make our Western missionaries at the village really happy, bring some peanut M&Ms or chocolate acai berries from Costco. I'm just throwing that out there. When you come to Open Arms Village, always bring chocolate, at least for our Western. Actually, our children typically don't like chocolate, I think.
Yeah. Chocolate.
It's too what? Too sweet?
It's too
Yeah. You like lollipops, though, typically.
We do.
Suckers and lollipops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but not chocolate. That's just for your own personal consumption and for the Western missionaries. So, yeah. So those are just some ideas there. Any other questions?
Yes. Thank you for adding that extra ways to contact you. And I think my next questions would be actually for the young men, just to hear your heart for the village. I mean, I know the ways that that Matt has things to pray for, but when you think about home, how do you pray for home?
Yeah, well, like for me, Open Arms are like for the last 10 years or so, it has always been my home. And I know like for the rest of my life, like I have a big heart for Open Arms because of the work they have done, not only in my life, but in my siblings, and also for the 150 more kids that are at the village. So I feel like I am part and parcel of Open Arms in whatever they're doing, because like 10 years ago, I was a street boy. 10 years after, here I am studying in a Bible college. So that really has a lot for me to unpack for you, for all like what Open Arms has done. So that's like a great transformation in my life through Open Arms. So yeah, and I really like thank God for that, for people having a vision for such, like we are not like related by any means, but because of our communion through Jesus Christ, sending people to Kenya, and here we are today, just because of the generosity of the people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love that.
Open Arms is definitely home for me too. I moved. So Matt mentioned earlier, I moved with my family from our place to Open Arms, and that's where it all started for me. That's where I met Isaac and many other siblings who are now my siblings. So it all started in 2010. Open Arms has helped not only me, but also my family. It has provided employment for my family. We were definitely not stable, and now we have a place to call home. We have a lot of siblings. We have my parents have now grown to be like really good people, and like now they just lead in the way that God has meant them to be. I think the other thing for me is like the opportunities that comes with like being in the village. It has been amazing to see how much I have grown. I see pictures of myself when I was like 10, and I'm just like, that is like a transformation that only God can bring for me. Open Arms has definitely done a lot for me. When I came there, I don't know if you remember, I used to have an eye problem. My left eye, I couldn't see very well. It had like, the connection between my nose and my eye didn't exist. So because like health is like very expensive in Kenya, and we don't have like health insurance and everything, all that thing. Open Arms helped me. I was funded. I was supported to go to Nairobi, and they did 2 surgeries on my eye, and now I can see well. I can. It's fine. So that happened because
I forgot about that.
Yeah. It's still in here. It was a big blessing for me and my family because of like serving there. It's definitely a blessing for the community too. Like I and Isaac being here is because of like teams like that go to Kenya. So they go to Kenya, and you meet people who are passionate about Christ. You meet people who are hungry for the word, and people who are listening to what God is saying. And we met them, and we had just finished high school, both of us. And this opportunity came up because of people who came to the village and like were listening to what God was saying. So we are here because of people like you who go to the village and are willing to serve and listen from God. So it has been a blessing. I definitely appreciate you guys. I know Shannon well. I know you guys, your spirit for the Lord. And it's just a blessing that you guys are even considering like hearing from us and like being a blessing to the kids. So it's definitely something that is highly appreciated. And thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for your time this morning. For those who are watching this later, yes, Bridgeport is going to take a team over there. No, we don't know when right now, but please, if you are watching this to the audience later, send Bridgeport a message. You can do that through Facebook or Instagram. If you want to be notified when we start to put that team together, just send us a little message, and we can make a note that says, to follow up with you, and we get more direction on when we can build this team. Thank you. Thank you, all three of you. Again, I am more excited after spending time with you guys than even I was pretty excited when we originally sat down. I'm even more excited now. So
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Mungu wabariki. God bless all of you.
Yeah.
You, Crystal, and everybody else listening.
fantastic. Okay, well, God bless you and keep you, and we will hear. This isn't the end. We will talk again soon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, have a wonderful day.
Okay, you too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.